even though Minnesota had looked so good heading into game three in the postseason, this was the first time where like we were expecting something of them, right? They
Sure.
were favored and like people just expected almost a sweep. I mean, it was certainly priced that way. And it's just a reminder that, like, again, recency bias is like one of the toughest things to navigate in betting. It's just tough to do. Do you trust what your eyes are telling you, or do you just like believe into the perception and like the media just overblowing everything? And I just, again, I was the reason I just had a little bit of hope in Denver, and we were talking about it of like, well, that game was on a Monday. They don't play again until Friday. Like, can we
Right.
talk ourselves into maybe backing Denver? It was just the fact that like that was the first game where we were expecting something of Minnesota. And now as we head back to Denver for game five, Minnesota's falling back into that category of okay, now everybody's just kind of expecting Denver to take control of this thing. They got those two games in Minneapolis. Now it heads back. It's a best of three. They have home court again. And I think, Ken, like the way this series is going, my prediction is that I still think Minnesota is going to win in seven. I think Denver's going to win game
Okay.
five. And then I think the Timberwolves win in 6 and 7. That's kind of my feeling. In like 20 seconds, what would your prediction as of like right now? How do you see the series finishing?
Well, I'll just say I'll give you a deeper prediction on the other side. I'll just say what we're guilty of at 2-0, everyone's doing again at 2-2, which is the series is over and Denver is won. Like everyone's just making the same mistake again. If you don't think Minnesota's still alive here, you're making the same mistake you did at 2-0 and you're just making it again, which is whatever the last thing you saw is has to be the way it goes. It can never be something different than that. And there's never that much certainty. Like I bought Denver I should be the one saying that. I bought Denver all year. I never bought another team the whole year. Could have bought Boston, could have bought Minnesota, could have bought Oklahoma City. No, like I only bought Denver. And I'm in the pit of misery at 2-0 going like, we did a whole show about contingency plans. Well, let's play it out. What would you like? And it was it was a disaster, like the tough options. Like we kind of got to the end of the show and it's like, I hate all of these. We basically lukewarm settled on Minnesota because we ran out of time to a lesser extent. So I just
Right.
I should be the one now that they're 2-2 being like, it's done, guys. Like, they got it. They're going to win the title. But I'd just be doing the same thing at 2-0, being too miserable, being like, it's over. I'd be doing that again. So, like, let's try to learn our lesson here a little bit. I do think we should at least have a betting conversation now about the market for Game 5, because I think that's part of this. You can think Denver's found something, which really is just, playing better, like Charles Barkley on the post-game show last night, and he's right, but I'm also like, they pay you this much money to say this stuff where he's like, well, they're just playing good. And it's like, that's it. And if you don't play good, you don't win. I'm just like, well, this is what we get here? Like, this is it? Like, he has it really funny and everything, but come on. But he's kind of right. Like, it's just Jokic and Murray just playing better. Like, that's kind of all it is. And so the market for Game 5, even if you think Denver's found something, even if you think they're going to go win-win here and win, like, the market is very, very much still kind of like indifferent to what's happened in the four games to the degree where like, yeah, what Denver was the first game of the series. This before we had 108 to 80, whatever that game two score was, before we had the Denver response in game three, before we had the insane shot making from Denver in game four, and Towns kind of crumbling, and Gobert not like kind of making a bunch of mistakes down the stretch. Edwards was insane. Before we had any of that happen, and Murray's playing better, and maybe he's not hurt as much, whatever. And Jokic, who we like somehow is the fifth thing mentioned there, and he's the best player in the world by far. Like before we had any of that, it was Denver 4.5. Before we had any of that, it was Denver 4.5, and we're just there again. So you can think Denver's back, and they're gonna whatever. Like, I don't like betting Denver in this game. I was kind of hoping that game 3 and 4 would give me a little more here out on Denver. I would think about taking Minnesota plus the points if you got enough in game 5. There's just not a big difference between the teams. The scores can be crazy. I think what we're learning is just there's not a big difference between the teams. It's like a handful of possessions here or there. And yeah, like I'll trust Jokic more than the other guys in a handful of possessions. And maybe that just means Denver wins the series. But the margin between the teams is tight. I mean, which we kind of knew going in. It's only confirmed that by these 4 games. So you show up to bet game 5 like thinking I'm getting this great discount or I'm getting this great value on Denver. Use that value word. Are you? You've learned enough in the 4 that and they dumped the 2 home games too. Like it's just, I don't know. Like I look at this market and I just go, yeah, Denver's more likely to win. They're playing at home. Murray looks better. Minnesota's still essentially full strength. So this should be the market that we like. I'm not surprised by this. There's nothing crazy happening here. Whereas the Knicks has had like three different crazy markets for a variety of reasons, fatigue, injury, etc. PJ, it doesn't seem like anything crazy is happening. Do you really want to bet game five? No, I'm going to cheer my voice off for Denver. A really weird way of saying that. But I'm not dying to bet into a 4.5 market. Are you kind of back in on the idea of Denver winning the title? I know this was something you had bet earlier in the season.
I feel better about it, but I still really don't know. There are three of the four series where I think it's really a coin flip as to who could win it. What I do like about this series is we've now set up something that could have a lot of historical importance. This is the series that sort of crowns Anthony Edwards as the next great guy, or gives Jokic that really great story. He won the championship, and the next year they were able to come back over Minnesota. The Nuggets, whoever wins this series, I think will be comfortable favorites over whomever Dallas or Oklahoma City is there waiting for them. I think the Nuggets will be bet against the Celtics in the finals, even though the Celtics will be favorites there. Not sure what that Minnesota line would look like, but I still feel that Denver is the team to win it. I don't feel as confident as I did maybe a month, even a few weeks ago, but I think whoever wins this series is going to win the West and has a good chance to knock off Boston.
Yeah, I mean, Noops, did you do anything when the Nuggets were down 0-2 in the series? Did you take them to come back and win the series? Did you take anything futures-wise, maybe with a player or them to win the finals? Did you do anything?
Yeah, one of my favorite markets, and I think it's one that might be a little bit underutilized by some people, is the NBA Finals MVP market. It's not quite as simple as the NFL, where the quarterback is the overwhelming favorite every time, but certain teams you have guys, and you look at this Nugget squad. I was scooping up Jamal Murray at the beginning of the playoffs around 40 to 50 to 1. And when I went in to look to see the Nuggets down 0-2, what some of those numbers were, I had plenty of Nuggets to win the championship, honestly. And I did think about adding a little bit, but instead, again, went to that NBA Finals MVP market and picked up some Jokic at 20 to 1. So if either one of those guys ends up being Finals MVP, I'm in good shape.
Boston, obviously, with the way that they shoot the three, Noops, and they're going to be huge favorites if they do make it to the NBA Finals the rest of the way in the Eastern Conference. You mentioned you like diving into that Finals MVP market. Like, do you see any value on any of the Boston guys, maybe outside of Tatum or Brown? Derek White obviously had some huge games early on in the postseason. Drew Holiday was really good for them in Game 3 against Cleveland. Porzingis, maybe if he comes back. Like, do you just see it as kind of Tatum or Brown, or could you make a case for some of the other guys on Boston?
I'm pulling up the odds here from our buddies over at BetMGM. Jaylen Brown's plus 900, Tatum now the favorite at plus 140. I think there is probably some value, given honestly the discrepancy in price between Tatum and Brown. I don't know why Brown is close to 6-7 times what the price is for Tatum. That seems honestly a little bit high, but looking at it now, I think probably there's a little value. Sprinkle some Jaylen Brown, sprinkle some Derek White. I think those are kind of the two players that you're looking at. Again, it's likely going to be Tatum, and I really don't like his number, and I think those numbers, again, on Brown and White are solid. There's probably a little bit of value there. I'm just not trusting of the Celtics, but that's what I would do. Look at those secondary guys.
Scotty's won in his last two starts. Rory's won in his last two starts. Brooks won in his last live event. So it's like all the top players kind of feel good with where their game's at heading into the PGA Championship. Obviously, Brooks has won this event 3 times before. You mentioned Tiger won here in 2000. Rory won here in 2014, so he's got some experience. And then Scotty, it just feels like wins nowadays everywhere he kind of tees up. But of those 3, do you think, like, one specifically, is there a guy that you think maybe his game really fits kind of Valhalla?
Well, I think out of those 3, you just have to look at Rory. He won here 10 years ago. I think he's a much better player than he was 10 years ago, and yet he hasn't won a major since. He's coming off a nice roll. Roy likes to play coming in at a really good tournament. Doesn't need to probably get a lot of reps at the course and wear himself out. In fact, we don't expect him here till tomorrow. And tomorrow the weather's not supposed to be great, so I don't even know if he'll practice at the course tomorrow. So he might only get in a single practice round on Wednesday, which, maybe in a weird way is good. Sometimes you can overdo it. But out of those guys, I sort of would like him the best, but that doesn't necessarily mean, Scotty, the one thing about Scheffler right now is, We haven't heard officially what happened, but the word is his wife had a baby last week. Is there any rust at all since he hasn't played for a couple of weeks? He would have normally played in Dallas 2 weeks ago. He skipped. He didn't play the signature event in Charlotte. Is he lost any of his edge? I don't think we know for sure. I kind of doubt it, but you wonder. And Kepka, of course, it's good sign for him that he had a good result because he gears up for these majors, just about as well as anybody. And he's really mad at himself. I actually wrote about this at SI for today. Like the Masters, he was furious at how poorly he played there and how, he felt like he wasted 4 months getting ready for it. So I have a feeling he'll be pretty determined. You say all that, those three guys, would you take those three guys over the field? I mean, that'd be a fun bet. I mean, uh, it's hard to believe that you would take any one guy or even three over 150 others, but you might just do it in their case.